Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on the Oxford Executive MBA Career Impact. My name is Jonathan Dover, and welcome along today. I can see people joining from many different parts of the globe, which is always great to see, and hopefully representative of what you'll see in the program when you submit your application. It's a bit of a grey, rainy day in Oxford today, but for those of you joining who were at our Experience Day a couple of weeks ago, you'll know that's very much an exception. It's always sunny here, or most of the time. But yes, a little bit disappointing today, unfortunately. Next slide, please, Joe. So yeah, just before we get started, a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Jonathan Dover. I'm a recruitment manager for the Executive MBA here at the Side Business School. We're split regionally within our team, so I look after our applicants based in either Africa, North America, or the Middle East. So if you're based in one of those locations, I would be your point of contact on the recruitment team. My background is in recruitment and executive search before joining the business school. So for the last 7 years, I've been working with applicants for the program. Mainly across those regions that you see there. I've covered a couple of others in that time as well. But yeah, hopefully look forward to getting to know some of you on a one-to-one basis over the course of the next few months. Next slide, please. So yeah, as many of you are no doubt aware, we are currently ranked #1 in the world for executive MBA programs with QS. And Oxford is the #1 university in the world. So I think rankings are always a good starting point for people who are, people like yourselves who are researching different executive MBA programs. I think you need to dig a little bit deeper than just the headline numbers to work out which program is going to be the best fit for you. And hopefully today will be a good step in the right direction in that sense. But I think hopefully that just demonstrates that the program and the school and the university continue to trend in a positive direction. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the business school. For those of you who aren't aware, we're 30 years old next year. So very much sort of the young relation of the university, given that we're embedded within a 900-year-old university here in Oxford. But I think that creates a really interesting dynamic, and it means that we have a young dynamic business school within this historic academic institution. And I think if you are weighing up different programs and different business schools, some of which potentially are standalone, that university setting really can be quite central to your experience on the program. And although not specifically the main topic for today's webinar, I think we'll probably touch on those themes as well as we progress through today. Next slide, please. So a little introduction to the Executive MBA program itself before we get to chat to some of our alumni who've lived and breathed the program. Just some kind of headlines there for you to kind of dig into. So the program itself is made up of between 14 and 16 week-long modules over between 22 and 24 months, depending on when you start the program. So if you start the program in January, and the program lasts 22 months, 24 months if you start it in September. What that equates to is roughly 1 week in every 5 or 6 when you would be physically present in Oxford or at one of our international locations that you can see there, or roughly 8 weeks a year if you want to break it down like that. So it's very much a part-time modular program designed so that you can continue in your own job role full-time during the program, and I would say sort of 90% of participants on the program do that over the course of the program. And you'll see there some of the core themes for the program. So global complexity, the Oxford leader, and the entrepreneurship project or entrepreneurial thinking is obviously a key focus for the program, as you will have no doubt seen from some of your own research. Some of the examples of international locations there. So there are a couple of subjects which are core to that. So you would choose between China, India, and Peru. Those options may change for that's for business and emerging markets and global opportunities and threats, and then 2 electives in the second part of the program. which you can choose to do. There are other options as well, but entrepreneurial finance, which is delivered in Palo Alto, in Silicon Valley, and obviously looks at that whole ecosystem. And also a week in Cape Town in South Africa, which looks at inclusive business in Africa and very much doing business in the African context. So an insight there into the global nature of the program in terms of content, but also in terms of the makeup of the class, which we'll come on to now. Next slide, please. So yeah, as you can see here from these stats, a typical class for us is a pretty diverse mix. So these are the numbers for the September 24 class, which was a group of 65. As you can see, there are 39 different nationalities within that number. So a really eclectic global mix in that sense. And also crucially, in terms of your experience, 30 different employment sectors represented in that group. So I think sometimes there's a perception that MBA classes or executive MBA classes are made up of lots of accountants and management consultants. But I think what we tend to find is that there's a lot of people from industry sectors you might not ordinarily expect to find in an MBA classroom. And I think that brings a real richness to the discussion. And regardless of what the topic for debate is of the day, there's some really interesting perspectives in the room in terms of how to solve leadership problems and so on. So it's a really interesting mix in that sense. Average age usually around 40. That's pretty typical. And in that group, there were 35% of the class were women. So that's another figure that we're albeit pleased with, but hopefully that's one that's going to improve even more in the coming cohorts. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to put this one in there to show what a typical week is like on the program. As you can see, it's a pretty packed schedule, and I think that's probably the key thing to take away. So it's a truly immersive experience on the Executive MBA in the format that we've created. Although it's a part-time modular program, it will, during those module weeks almost feel full-time, and there is that opportunity to really immerse yourself in your studies. But also to really get to know your classmates really well. So you're certainly not going to be like ships that pass in the night. You're going to be very much sort of developing in-depth relationships with people in your cohort, and that's really important as you progress through the program and eventually become alumni of the program in terms of developing those in-depth relationships and really leveraging the network that you're going to gain. Next slide, please. And yeah, as mentioned, it's a mix of classroom and experiential learning, but beyond that, there's a huge amount to add to the experience outside what you're going to be doing purely on the program itself. So just a couple of things worth highlighting there. The Global Network for Advanced Management, or GNAM. So that's something that you would get to take advantage of on the program, where you actually get to go and study at another business school as part of another executive MBA program, as part of a reciprocal agreement between schools within that global network. So you might be able to go and spend some time at Yale, or we have people who have gone to South Korea recently, or Mexico. Lots of really interesting global locations for you to go and experience something different outside the Oxford program. Bottom left there, you'll see the Oxford Union. You'll get an opportunity to debate at the Oxford Union, and they have some pretty cool speakers over the course of your time here. So that's another example of the wider Oxford ecosystem, and really just getting an opportunity to take advantage of all of that. And of course, the alumni network. So the Oxford Business Alumni Network is the one that you're primarily going to be a member of when you graduate from the program. But another layer to that is the Oxford network itself. So that's an incredibly powerful thing as well. And it is just an example of how, yes, the program is 2 years, but it's very much a lifelong association with the business school and the university. And as our associate dean Patty Brown said at our experience day a couple of weeks ago, it's like the Hotel California. So you check out, but you never actually leave, and that, I think that's pretty true of the experience of the alumni network. And hopefully we'll get into that with some of our guests today as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, now on to probably the main focus of today's session. We want to talk about career impact of the Executive MBA. So I've invited along two of our fantastic alumni who are going to be able to speak hopefully about their experience on the program first and foremost, but the impact that that had on them from a career perspective, because both of them came onto the program with particular aims in mind, some of which they were able to achieve, and some of which kind of evolved and crystallized over the course of the program. But what we really want to get into today is to chat about how they were able to interact with specific elements of the program, but also the careers resources that we have at the school, and really how they were able to take advantage of that in terms of really accelerating their career and achieving what they wanted to get out of the program. So first of all, just want to hand over to our two guests, Madonna and Felicity, to introduce themselves. We'll get into some questions as well, but at this point I want to say, let's try and make this as interactive as possible. If you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will try and get through as many of those as we can. But first of all, over to Madonna. Do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you're up to at the moment?
Yes, sure. Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. So my name is Madonna Obalike. I'm currently the head of legal for Africa at Recruitment Manager. And I was just telling Jonathan, I was obviously recently promoted. I see that ever since my MBA, all I've done is just, get promoted, to be honest. And based in Nigeria, but moving to South Africa very soon. But yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Obviously, chose the MBA program for different reasons, and I guess we'll get into that as well. But my background, like I've said, is in law, and I've been a lawyer for about 20 years thereabouts. And so looking forward to the conversations. Over to you, Felicity.
Perfect, thank you, and congrats again on the promotion. Well timed with the subject of today's webinar. Felicity, over to you.
Congratulations, Madonna. Felicity Edwards. So I was part of the S19, so September 2019 cohort. So I finished in around mid 2021. I'm Australian with significant international experience. So I started my career as an aerospace engineer in Japan. Then transitioned I did over a decade with Nissan. So I was transitioned into the automotive industry. That was in Germany and then the UK, working in various areas within Nissan. I left Nissan, began the MBA program. So in 2019, with the intention of pivoting, I wanted to move away from traditional automotive engineering or traditional companies, so to speak. I wanted a more dynamic role. I'd considered consulting. So Alex Partners is a consulting firm. I'd considered consulting, but I'd not actively pursued it. And honestly, until there was an event organized by SBS with Alex Partners, I'd never heard of Alex Partners before. So I was introduced to my company through the careers team. So the MBA, starting the MBA, I wanted to try and figure out where I wanted to go. And it gave me a real test bed to trial a whole lot of different industries through the assignments, to be frank. I did an assignment on wind turbines. I did an assignment on pubs in the UK. I did an assignment on a merger between two automotive companies that I actually ended up working with closely, under the same guys later on. So the MBA provided me this ground to sort of test what industries I'm interested in, what type of topics am I interested in, and it provided me with a bit of an adaptability, which really helped me in the pivot in my career in consulting, because you have to be really adaptable. And throughout my consulting career now, which has been just near 5 years, that adaptability has been crucial and just built. And my role today, I go into companies that have big problems or big challenges that they want to try to evolve through. And I don't know what I'm going into next. So like at the moment, I'm working in a big OEM in the US. Which I'm trying to help their purchasing team completely evolve. And I didn't work in purchasing before I moved into consulting. So I need to figure out what's the current challenge of the company that I'm with, and and what do they need, and then if I don't have the skill set, bring it in with some of my colleagues who do. So that adaptability really does come back to my early career of moving around a lot, but also the MBA course itself.
Perfect. Yeah, and yeah, interesting. Just some of the points that you've touched on there around kind of mindset and adaptability, and how you've been able to take that into the consulting world. So that's great to hear. Felicity, you obviously had quite a specific ambition and aim pre-MBA, but Madonna, it sounds like maybe you were in a slightly different situation. So maybe you can just sort of expand on that. And so, yeah, what were your ambitions when you went through the application process and before you started?
Yes. To be honest, yes. John is right. When I joined the EMBA, I think for me, I was more about. I mean, when I applied for the course, all I was more focused was understanding the business side of things. To be fair, and I applied to Oxford and a couple of other schools that I got into, and I think it wasn't actually until Jonathan and I had a conversation that I obviously switched over to Oxford. I'm from a purely legal background, so everything I've done, like my previous masters was in law. Like literally, my whole life was law. And when I joined the program, I was working for an agricultural organization, agricultural organization, and I was just like, look, I need to understand like the business side of things, not just the legal parts. And so for me, I was going in there based off of that. But then I got into Oxford, and my career trajectory changed. And I think that's one thing that Oxford does to you. You come in expecting, you feel like you know what you want. Like, oh yes, when I graduate in 22 months, this is what I'm going to be. Oxford, you come in, Oxford confuses you. Let me just let you know. You're going to get confused because all of a sudden your well-laid plans aren't so well laid. And this is because, like you've seen in the previous slides that Jonathan showed, you have like all these amazing courses that you take that basically just start to change your mindsets. You know, I came in, I never thought I want to be an entrepreneur. I never thought I want to do anything about, like consulting or, working like engage in startups or private equity, nothing like that. I was so laser focused. I want to come in, I want to do this, go back to my agricultural organization and just be whatever. But then come in, I go from being from agricultural legal to join Coca-Cola as compliance. I go from Coca-Cola, so I'm going from agricultural to consumer goods, from consumer goods to Reckitt right now, which is healthcare. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, everything that I thought I wanted, I'm now more confused than when I joined the program. So that's the good thing about it, because now you have different path lanes to take. It's no longer just this one specific career path that you had in mind. It's now like, oh wow, so I can actually do this if I wanted to do this, because now I have the knowledge, or now I have the experience, I have the network, which is very important. You have the careers team. It's a lot, so when I came in, it changed me. I tell people all the time, like, Oxford completely transformed my life, my thinking, everything. So yeah, it's a ride that you have to be ready for, because listen, it catapults you, listen, to to places that you just never imagined. So you need to be open-minded when you come. You need to be open-minded to the experiences, to the people, to the classes, to the diversity, to the environment. You just need to be open-minded and be willing to learn, and just take in as much as you can, because 22 months goes just like that.
Yeah, and I think it's that word sort of adaptability again. I think, you need to come into the program being prepared, to be adaptable and to almost be a bit of a sponge, and really just kind of soak up as much as you can, and be prepared to be sort of taken or pulled in a few different directions, because depending on your own sort of individual personality, almost that you could end up going a number of different directions, and there's, as we know, so many different outcomes from the program. So yeah, that's really interesting insight, Madonna. Thank you. So I want to kind of get into a couple of things now. So first of all, you touched on the Oxford network and how important that's been from a career perspective since you graduated. but also sort of specific elements of the MBA program. So I wonder if you could both, first of all, speak to maybe a couple of specific parts of the curriculum that you feel have had a real impact in terms of your career progression post graduating. Do you want to take that one first, Felicity?
Sure. So the courses in terms of which.
Yeah, just what sort of stands out as being sort of particularly relevant from a career progression perspective, and how you've sort of leveraged that.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, my background was engineering, and I worked predominantly in engineering before the MBA. I did have a little bit of exposure to financial analysis as toward the end of my time at Nissan. I became responsible for the cost and profitability of new technologies that were going into Nissan vehicles. But it was still light touch. So one of the things that I was really keen to get a better grasp of in the MBA was financial courses. So the accounting course, there's business finance, there's corporate valuation, private equity. I'm probably missing a few, but I really loaded up heavy with the electives on more finance-based topics. And it was also something where I'll be maybe a little bit blunt, but one of the things that I did early on in the MBA after I started, when we were thinking about our electives, is I spoke to some of the previous cohorts around what do they experience with different classes. And I found that the advice that was given to me by people who came from more similar background to me, so I'm very math science-based background, is that some of those more, I can't think of a better way to put this, but I hope this doesn't come across poorly, but fluffy topics don't go down well with people from my type of background. And so I decided to follow their advice, and I went and I did want to focus on that financial side to sort of build up that side of my knowledge. But I did audit some of the electives of, I won't say which ones, but some of the more fluffy ones. And I just dropped out of them halfway through because I'm like, this is just not up my alley. So they were spot on about what might work for you, what might not. And if anyone who's listening to this discussion wants to have a private chat later, I can share with you my thoughts about what works not well or not, based if you have a similar sort of background and you think it might be the same sort of thing. But yeah, the finance side was really helpful. I could have made the transition into consulting without it, but it just made it so much easier to have a better understanding, be able to open up a P&L, understand what's what in it, being able to quickly assess the situation, and the MBA did help me with that, those courses. And I found actually my favorite course was private equity. Don't want to go into private equity, but it challenged me so much. It was the hardest course in terms of mentally straining during it, but I loved it, and I felt like I learned so much from it. But still don't want to go into private.
Yeah, but I think that's a really good explanation of how you can tailor your executive MBA to suit what you want to get out of it. You know, you've said there, Felicity, that you deliberately loaded up on the kind of the finance and quant heavy stuff, which, you know, for where you wanted to get to is perfect. And then other people perhaps who already have, you know, a strong background in that space and want to do something totally different, they can go in a totally different direction. So, you know, that there is that opportunity to do that. You do your core subjects in the first part of the program, and then you get to kind of specialize and diversify a bit by doing your electives in the second half. So that's just a really good example of a particular track that you can take. I've got a question for you in the chat, actually, Felicity, if I may. So Sergey would like to know whether the network that you built through the program has helped with your consulting career.
To be honest, not directly. So something that I found quite interesting, and I've joined a number of events through the MBA alumni since we finished. But what I found is that a lot of people have gone down the entrepreneurial track, which is not where my clients usually lie. My clients are usually, small client would be 200 million revenues, typically over $1 billion easily. So entrepreneurial side is quite sort of getting it off the ground, that type of thing. So it's been interesting, but and sort of just networking, learning what's going on in different industries, that sort of side of things, but not a direct help for my consulting career, no.
Okay. Madonna, on a similar theme, do you want to maybe speak to how you've been able to leverage the Oxford network in some of the career moves that you've made, and just the importance of that generally?
Yeah, so first of all, I think we currently have an Oxford, I don't know if Felicity is on the group, we have like an Oxford WhatsApp group. We're almost 800, I think, on the group. It's a WhatsApp group for all the past Oxford students and out EMBA students. And out of those groups, we actually had subgroups. So you have subgroups for AI, for humanitarian, for Africa, for tech, for diplomacy, things like that. So that's been really huge. It's been very huge because right there, there's a lot of support in terms of people looking for jobs, in terms of people looking for partners, in terms of people looking for funding. I would say the Oxford network is probably one of the major reasons why I applied. Obviously, apart from the history and the caliber of lecturers, I would say that the network and the alumni network was one of the major reasons why I applied. Because even while I was applying, reaching out to Oxford alumni, everyone was just open to share experiences, right? And me actually going into Coca-Cola when I left from the agricultural organization was a referral from someone in Oxford. And it just came because I was, like I said, I was at that point in Oxford where I thought I knew what I wanted. And it's like, oh, have you thought about, leveraging your regulatory and legal skills to do this, and da. And so me entering Coca-Cola came from an Oxford alumni's recommendation. And so for me, it's a network that I don't play around with simply because it's a supportive network. People there are genuinely, like, especially the EMBA network, people there are genuinely happy to support, to help in any way. If it's a contact you want, if it's advice on something, if it's raising funds, anything literally. So it's a network that you're coming into as well, a network that you already feel like you belong, you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's gold. That's the word. The Oxford, the alumni network has been gold, to be honest. So
Yeah,
yeah,
those WhatsApp groups are pretty powerful, aren't they?
they are, honestly, because it's a diversity. A WhatsApp group with like 700 people. You know what I mean? It's almost like a treasure trove of information and of contacts and of networking and of love and everything. Like it's, you just have to be a part of it to understand. Felicity is smiling. So, but yeah, seriously, I really hope that obviously those of you here would be able to join or would join the network in future. But it's been amazing.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good illustration of the power of the network, and how you've been able to leverage it specifically from a careers perspective. There's a good question from Francis in the chat. I think to summarize, he's basically asking, how does the Executive MBA enhance capabilities beyond technical expertise? So for someone who has a solid foundation in, say finance and business management, how does the program help in areas such as global perspective, driving sustainable growth, and organizational leadership, that kind of thing? So would you both be able to speak to that just briefly?
Yeah, I think everyone comes in with different skill sets. If you come in with a heavily financial background, then you'll be greatly advantaged for some of the topics that you have to go through. But I know that there were some courses like I think it was Tech and Ops, where some people struggled a bit who didn't come from that background. That one was one of the easiest ones for me. If you want to look more around strategy and innovation, again, that was a topic where I've through working in more of a technical background, innovation is something that was very much a part of my day-to-day work. So, but that's where people who didn't come from that background found it much more fascinating to join those courses. So I think it's about trying to figure out where are your gaps, where are your interests, and there will be something, whether it's a core course or an elective, which should meet that need. And if not, then I'd actually question whether you're looking at whether you really have done that self-reflection and where you want to fill those gaps. because no one I met was excellent in everything. There were always people who struggled in some areas more than others, and vice versa for the others. So I'd say you probably come in with a good strength and a good foundation, but there are definitely areas where you'd probably have opportunities to develop further.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. As the name of the course would suggest, it's a broad general management program, and it's highly unlikely that someone's going to be an expert in every single subject. So that's something that typically will even itself out over the course of the program. And some people, will be in their comfort zone for some areas and not for others. But yeah, and I think that's a really good point for someone coming in from a technical specialist kind of point of view.
I'll also just add, there were, I think it was 1 or 2 people on my cohort who were CEOs, and I think they found this was a safe space to ask what they thought might be seen as stupid questions because they'd gone so far in their career. And this area was just a little bit vague to them, but they felt uncomfortable making it clear to the people that they work with, because they're supposed to be leading all these people. And if you suddenly show a weakness, now, depending on the culture of the company you work in, maybe that's good that you can ask those questions and feel like you can ask the silly questions. But it's a safe space to explore and to better understand areas where maybe it's just a bit vague or fuzzy for you.
100%. Yeah, agreed. Madonna, you had a comment to comment on that one? Yeah.
Yeah, no, yes, just on what Felicity was saying, for me, I think it was the direct opposite. And simply because, like, I came from a legal background and I'd just done a master's, so I thought I knew what I was coming in for. I think the word was cocky. And then I came in, the first course that we had was, I think it was, it was analytics. It was analytics, right? And you guys, when I tell you that I came into analytics and I was just like, what is happening? For me, it was like, what is happening? I was so out of my comfort zone that at one point I left the class, and this is me being very like open. I left the class and I went behind the auditorium and I started crying because I was just like, what is happening? Like I do calculation, like, I'm not a finance person, right? But it was an eye opener. So for Felicity, it was for her, she had her strengths. But for me, law and writing were my strength. So like corporate governance, ethics, I was like, yes, I'm in my zone. But then I'm doing things like macroeconomics and microeconomics and tech and ops, and I'm doing things like business finance and accounting. So I was so out of my comfort zone, honestly. But again, the good thing is the kind of people that I am with, my cohort and the lecturers, it's easy for you to say, listen, I don't understand what is happening. And the lecturers are happy to, talk to you about it after class. Your classmates are happy to talk to you about it after class. So you come in, you will have those moments where you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? What is this? I don't understand. And it might not be your strength, but it will become a part of your strength. It will be something that adds to what you already have. So I would always say just come in with an open mind, because there's no one in the Ember, even Felicity talking about tech and ops, there were people in that field who still who didn't pass as much as they wanted, because you come in with all this preconceived notion of what you think it should be. You had finance people who were not even making distinctions in finance, and it was like, but I am a finance person, because it's you just leave everything you think you know at the door. Just know you're coming in to learn, because every single thing you do has to be what you have learned in the system. Forget what you think you know, because that's the only way that you can progress in the program. And so you just have to have an open mind. Don't worry about the fact that you're not strong in some things. Like Felicity has also said, there are a lot of courses that would open you up to everything. If you're looking for sustainability or AI or tech or even law or business, or you want to be an entrepreneur, you know, private equity. I did private equity. Felicity is right. Private equity for me was it was one of the most interesting courses. I took it as an elective, and mergers and acquisitions as well. So it might not be your strength, but it would help. You would find courses where you're strong in, and the ones that you're not strong in, you will get better. And I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like a sort of, it balances out your strengths basically.
Yeah, good advice, I think, on a number of levels there. So just wanted to quickly cover another question in the chat from Terry, who's from a sports background, and he's just asking whether or not we have people from a sports program on the program, and whether they're if they're looking to gain a career within sports. So yes, we've had a number of professional athletes in the program, quite a few rugby players, but people from other sports as well. Quite often people looking to make the transition from sport into into the corporate world generally, but a couple of them have gone into the sort of sports commercial side of things, and the program definitely equips people looking to make that kind of transition for sure. So yeah, quite a few examples of that. And yeah, Terry, if you want to get in touch with one of the members of the recruitment team on that, happy to provide a bit more detail for sure. So before we move on to the next part of today's session, so my colleague Nita is going to join us in a second to introduce the career services team. But I wanted to just while we've got Madonna and Felicity here, just to check in with them on what were their interactions like with the careers team and careers resources while they were on the program, and sort of how pivotal was that in you being able to secure the role that you've gone on to do. I think Felicity, you're probably the most obvious example of this, but Madonna, I'm sure you've got a few thoughts on that too.
Yeah, so I mean, I made full use of the careers team. Like I said, when I came in, I was working for an local agricultural organization. So what I like about careers team is they helped me refine how I present myself, not just on paper, but in interviews and in executive decisions. And then the leadership coaching really helped me because I joined Oxford as an introvert, to be fair. One of the biggest things you would ask anyone from my cohort, I was such an introvert when I joined, and I had major imposter syndrome. But I think one of the things that the leadership coaching did was basically just help me confront that imposter syndrome and just basically step confidently into who I'm supposed to be. And they worked on my resume. I think I worked with Adela for a while. Adela is such a treasure. They worked on my resume. They worked on the interviews that I was going to have. They worked on my composure. It was literally just, it was honestly, I don't know. I just don't know how else to say this, but I think that the careers team is literally one of the best career teams that I've had the opportunity to work with. And they just basically make you a better version of yourself. After they worked on my resume, I couldn't believe I was like, wait, this is my resume. And it's literally the same things, but the way they position you, and it just builds that confidence. So it was fantastic. And like I said, obviously got the job, got introduced, got recommended for this role, spoke to Adela and her team before the interviews, and like they say, here we are.
Perfect. That's great insight. Thank you. And Felicity, we obviously we heard about how you were introduced to your current employer via the careers team, but maybe a couple more thoughts before I hand over to Nita.
Yeah, I'd say there's two ways that the careers team help very holistically. One is more generally. So there's a whole lot of events that take place. I actually took advantage. I wasn't working for the first year of the MBA, and I took advantage of full-time MBA events, and I sort of gate crashed a few of them, which was one of the ones where I met someone from, or was jointly hosted with Alex Partners, was this Women in Consulting full-time MBA event. And I almost didn't go because I had to travel into London for it. I was like, I can't be bothered going into London for it. But I went, and then I ended up meeting the partner who's head of automotive for UK. So just though I joined a number of those events, and that was the one that actually was most impactful to me. The others were interesting, and to meet different people from different companies, but that one was obviously the one that cemented my career going forward. The other way is more tailored to the individual, which Madonna's given some examples there. The point that I found most helpful for me was, as I was transitioning into consulting, in an interview, you have to do case studies, case studies of this is the situation in a company, these are the numbers that you're given, this is the information you're given, now tell us what the solution is, or what the answer to X is. And I'd never done that before. It's quite less common for MBA students to transition into consulting because it often requires a step back in your career. and it did for me. But I was willing to take make that change. On the careers website, they have a whole lot of examples of case studies from Deloitte, from McKinsey, from all these different companies. They didn't have any from Alex Partners, but that worked fine by practicing through some of those. And then they actually organized for me to do a mock case study with someone who is experienced in that background. So I did one mock case study, which was probably a bit silly of me to all hang it on to one, because it's very different when you do it with a person versus just running through the case studies yourselves. But that was really helpful to understand how to think whilst doing that. So and that's just one example with consulting. There's other industry experts that they've got within the careers team that can help you understand what happens in that industry, or how to get into that industry, or what's required to get into that industry. So I'd say that once I think when you're trying to explore and when you figure out where you want to go to, they can be very instrumental in helping you get there.
Perfect. Yeah, and I should say, maybe Nita may correct me on this, but and I can see that Harry's actually asked a question in the Q&A about this. But you said that you gate crashed that event, but it is these events are actually open to Executive MBA students as well. I think Nita will probably confirm that. But
would you like me to confirm and deny? So I've got a lawyer here, so I need to speak in that language. Yeah, so those events you are able to go. You just need to know that they might be pitched at people at the middle stage of their career, and as long as you know there's going to be interesting people, there will be senior executives there, but the pitch might be towards someone that's 5-6 years out of graduating. So, but yeah, absolutely. And then that's great that you did that as well, Felicity, because what often happens is, just like you say, Madonna, you can ask the generic questions to understand more to when you get to the sort of more senior person. But Felicity, it sounded like you met just the right person. Serendipity happened to you, but quite often actually going to those things helps you ask more generic questions and then get deeper when you get to the person you need to speak to. So it's actually a wise decision to do that. You just need to speak to us. If they're not visible to you, we'll invite you along. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that seems like a natural point for me to say, next slide, please, and to hand over to Nita, who is going to introduce career services and hopefully just expand on a few of the themes that we've touched on already as well. But yeah, over to you, Nita.
And just before I start, just to say, Madonna and Felicity, I didn't get the pleasure of meeting you. I joined the team about a year ago to work with alumni here at the Side Business School, and joined the EMBA team just over the last 3 months. I've had the pleasure of meeting so many wonderful alumni and EMBA as a result. So I'm Nita Ladd. I'm the Executive MBA careers coach. I've actually worked with MBAs for the last 12 years in many different business schools and formats, and also worked in headhunting, so I understand the whole climate of recruitment training, all of that side of things, and how people look for talent. So it's a great pleasure to be part of this, work with the most brilliant minds that there are around the world. And what Madonna and Felicity don't say is that they did all this stuff, and they kind of almost like make it sound easy, but actually you get what you put in. And Madonna, and I know Felicity would have put a lot of hard work in to make those career changes, and to the courses and everything is about how they have accessed the network, taken advantage of it. You still have to do that. You're all very different people, and it's a great. You can feel overwhelmed by it, but if you're intentional and you're willing to explore, you can get the best out of it, and hopefully you can add to that as well. But I'm going to say next slide, please, because you want to know about what we offer as well, and I'll obviously be able to answer questions as well. Okay, so that's just another slide to say I'm here. So next slide, please. So this is the team. So there's 5 of us in the team. So myself, I look after you while you're on the program. There's Maria Dooley that heads up the whole service for executive careers. Susan Bassett, who starts to look after you much more so as you leave the program and you become alumni. So there's that whole service. And the wonderful Adila who was spoken about. And this is kind of, we often get Adila as such a gem, and she's a wonderful gem in our team. And she's been with us for a number of years. We all have different specialisms and expertise, but we're kind of generalists, because as you know, from just listening to Madonna and some of the stories, everyone, you will attest to this, everybody on the program literally has a different country they're from, or different specialism, different industry sector. So the more that we understand different sectors and are able to sort of help you adapt, because of our adaptability, the better we can serve you as well. And we also have Sabia Khan, who actually sets up all the programs. She's a person, if you ask any questions and to the careers team, she's the one that signposts you to the right place and so on. And as Madonna was saying earlier, and Felicity, that there's a core team that provide that one-to-one support, but also workshops and events and things like that to support you. And I'll give you an idea of what we offer. But there's also a team behind that that works more with the full-time MBAs that are here kind of, full-time, that specialize in different areas, so consulting, finance, and these are really broad areas, global industry, which includes global impact, petroleum industry, and tech, and agri-foods as well, Madonna. So, and you can actually tap into, so we're kind of the triage point. We get to know you during the program. We're there on site. We can meet you online, face to face, but this behind the scenes team also can provide some support and have much more in terms of specialist industry contacts. And then behind that, we have a group of industry advisors. So hopefully, you guys are changing professions all the time in the industry, that will have somebody that can actually help you when it comes to that time of mock interview, or if you're making a decision, having done some deep research into an industry, whether you'd fit that industry and what you need to learn in between. So we have industry advisors, and then we also have the Entrepreneurships Centre that provides support if you're becoming an entrepreneur. As Johnny mentioned, there's actually an increasing number, and Madonna, I think you mentioned that there's an increasing number of people that are wanting to become entrepreneurs on the program, and so that's quite interesting. There's lots of entrepreneurs that join, but also entrepreneurs that then go on and become entrepreneurs at the end of it as well. So I'll move on to the next slide, please. That would be great. Okay, I was going to get you to do a show of hands to see what kind of changes you're going to go into, but you will literally see there's so many of you on the call that might take a long time, so I'm going to assume. So you can see here there's some of the transitions that people have made, and literally there are many things. You can do a triple jump, where we call it geographic, sector and function, which is very rare to do. It takes quite a big step, especially at a more senior level. But literally people can be moving geography, so country, transitioning the role. So you might move from, say, finance to, it's quite a rare move, to marketing, or often, procurement to chief operations, to you might be wanting to move up. So a lot of people come to us and they know they're really great, but that next step up is becoming, the more higher up you go, the more difficult it is to make those connections to get into that circle. There's fewer positions. So how do you leverage that? How do you brand yourself internally or externally to get that kind of message right, to be seen as you want to be seen and have the opportunities that are there for you? And then also securing a board role, a non-executive director role. We've got a support system for that as well, WB directors. And then starting your own business, so we can help you think about that, but also connect you into the Entrepreneurship Centre. And there's a number of people that do set up their businesses whilst on and after the programme as well. So that gives you an idea of the different kinds of transitions that people make. Next slide, please. And when we think in terms of the kind of support we offer, if you think about it like a continuum, so I've had the pleasure of studying career development theories even, and I'm fascinated by people and how they develop and how they change. And as Madonna has said earlier, that she's had multiple changes, but having her legal background as a really strong really strong thread throughout what she's done. So many people come to us at different stages, and through careers coaching, the online resources that we have, and through networking events that we have, we can provide support in many different ways. So if you think about it, continue, first of all, when you're going to do something new, quite often you have that reflection point where you're trying to think about how do you articulate your skills in a different way. It can be very confusing, this point. And we can help you through that. We've got workshops called career visioning, where we help you vision and look at your values, your strengths. We also it can help you. You can actually use the Canvas resources, which is our online platform, to do that, as well as through the one-to-one coaching. And then, there's the other bit, which is looking at the market and discovering what pathways. And this is what you guys were talking about earlier, about learning things from the modules of the teaching, but then also exploring different pathways, getting confused, trying another, finding out what's realistic. And accessing the system and working with search firms as well. So we also, once a year now, we have executive search firms come in to give you some insight. Executive search firms only cover sort of a small percentage of the market. So actually you're networking, widening your network, increasing your social capital by having those networking conversations, moving from becoming a complete introvert to moving towards a little bit of extroversion as you're comfortable, having a bit of a rest and carrying on networking. And then activating, the other side is then, if you look to the right, is activating your career. That's when, you're ready to make that move. You've got to get your paperwork ready. You've got to start pitching yourself to other people, interviewing, all of that. So people come to us at different stages. So we have had somebody that's totally ready, was in the private equity market, was in the private equity market already, wanted to move into fintech. But at the senior level already had that kind of contacts in private equity. So then I was able to move into a position. We helped him with a CV, very little sort of help in terms, obviously he came to an event the other week. He was so grateful for the support we provided. But then there's somebody else that might be like really starting from scratch, had their own business, wanting to do something completely different. What do you do? So we help people through all that journey and through the confusion that happens throughout that, and sometimes the confidence. So often people say to me, I'm really, they come to me and they say, oh, they look very confident, and they say, Nita, I just needed the confidence to go and do this, because the change is the bit where you kind of need that help and that support, becoming more confident at articulating yourself and your point of difference when you're doing something different. I hope that's helpful in terms of giving an idea of what we provide. So next slide, please. So yeah, just as I've covered, really, we want you to become and take ownership of your career and your professional development. So we're there to give you a hand, but really, the more you put in, the more you'll get, the more you expand your social capital and your network by reaching into the alumni network, going to these events, making meaningful connections and strong relationships with your cohort, the more you can really help yourself move forward. And you may be that I don't need a career change right now, but actually career resilience is about being ready for when market changes happen, when a change happens in your business, that you're able to sort of leverage those skills and build that adaptability so you can make that change and be ready and intentional. So we've got careers coaching, workshops and events, lots of digital resources. A couple of them that I'll mention is Korn Ferry, which is an global executive search firm. We have a salary survey tool that we have especially from them. And it's really helpful in terms of finding out international salaries and actually compensation and benefits. But also Executive Grapevine, where you can find headhunters from across the globe and different areas. And also WB Directors, which is great for finding out about board roles. But more than that, how to become, a board executive as well. And there's lots of training and resources on that as well. Okay, next slide, please. And this is just a really brief overview of some of the, so with what happens is with the careers offering, we often have workshops that are within the module, so incorporated in the teaching. And this is kind of an example idea of what we might offer you. So you'll see a few different things. So you might get an introduction to what we offer first, but then we might go into things like, get an executive headhunter in to tell you about interviewing at a senior level. And then, how to work with executive headhunters, how you brand yourself, rebrand yourself as someone different, as utilizing your skills, and networking, in a different way, networking with a different intention. And then we also have expert views, which Adila actually organizes in our team to help you understand different market areas, and that will be tailored and personalized depending on what cohorts are saying that their need is and what market changes are happening as well. But we'll help you with your LinkedIn, help you vision your career, help you feel less stuck as well. So lots of things that we offer support with. And at the end, wine and coaching for a bit more of an informal chat and meeting an alumni at the end of it as well.
I don't think
we also have a
the
careers
wine
chat.
one.
Yeah.
Don't think we had the wine one at the end.
Well, you can come and visit and tell everyone what great things you're doing. I'll book you in for the next one. So we're always improving things as well. We're always learning from you as well. And I know Felicity and Madonna, you may not have had some of these things. It's been changing. We're evolving. We're learning from the cohorts as well. So apologies if you didn't have all of this, but
No, it was the same when we went through. I knew we got new things that previous years didn't. Every year it gets better. So that's how it should be.
Yeah, thank you. And if you could move on, I think I'd leave it open for questions because I've talked quite a lot, but I think there's a couple of slides. Just to end off, I might just say one last word. There's a next slide which shows you some of the expert views sessions, like sector focused sessions, so you can see some of the areas that we've done them in, but then we'll tailor it according to what people are saying, what's changing. We always do consulting because that's usually really popular. And we go to the next slide, please. These are some of the digital resources. I talked about them already. There's some tools that you don't, like firsthand, where you can network with people without, that are alumni of different organizations. And it's actually a quick way of networking when you're a bit nervous about networking, because you don't have to be perfect because it's someone that's just wanting to offer advice. So lots of secret tools like this as well. And then the final slide really is to say, it's your journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It does take time. So big changes take a lot of time unless you meet somebody amazing and you serendipitously get the right connection. But we're here to help. So I'm going to leave you to answer, if you've got any questions, or Johnny, you might need to wrap up. Just let me know.
Yeah, I was going to say we're pretty much at time, really. I mean, we've had quite a few questions come through in the chat, some of which we've got to. So apologies to those that we haven't been able to, but I just wanted to say thank you very much, Nita, for that great whistle-stop tour, I guess, of career services. I know there's much more that you could have said had time allowed, but I think that's really helped to kind of sort of bring to life a lot of the stuff we were chatting about with Madonna and Felicity as well. And also just to say thank you so much to Felicity and Madonna for giving up an hour of their afternoon. I know they're both very busy people, and it really is much appreciated, because I think for people who are considering the program, there is very little substitute to hearing from people who have actually lived and breathed it, been through the experience on the course, and then actually been able to implement some of the experiences that they gained thereafter. So really do appreciate that. And Madonna, I can see you just asked if anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn. Happy to do that. And equally, if you want to connect with either myself or my colleagues in the recruitment team, please do reach out and discuss your potential candidacy or anything related to the application process. Next slide, please. So just before we go, just to highlight where we're at in terms of the recruitment cycle for the next couple of intakes. So you'll see there that that there is still time if you want to submit an application for the September 2025 intake. The final deadline for applications is the 1st of July. So as you'd expect in this point in the cycle, we are starting to fill up in terms of that class, but there is still time if that's the start date that works for you. So please do reach out to myself or one of my colleagues in the recruitment team if you'd like to discuss that. And next slide, please. But we're also, if that seems a little bit too tight for time, we're also accepting applications for January 26 at the moment. So we've had a couple of deadlines for that, but 3 still to go, with the final deadline being the 10th of November. So still definitely plenty of time if January 26 is a start date that could work for you. So again, if either of those options are a possibility, please do reach out to myself or one of my colleagues in the recruitment team, depending on whereabouts you are based. But it just remains for me to say thank you very much for joining us today. I hope that's been a useful session for everyone who joined. And as I say, great to see so many of you join, and so many different parts of the globe represented, which as you've seen from the presentation today, that's pretty representative of what you could expect on the program in terms of international diversity. So thank you for your attention. I hope it's been useful, and I really look forward to connecting with some of you separately in the coming days and weeks. Thank you again, and have a great rest of the week.